Okay, take two. That was an interesting experience. So I'll just spotlight Christine and I. Someone coming in? Okay. Welcome, beautiful souls. Thank you for being here with us and thank you for your patience. We've never had technical difficulties quite like that before. So today's conversation is just a deep dive into talking about death and dying. I'm here with Christine Eyre. She's a good friend of mine. And she's also a death doula. So she helps people to transition in peace. She helps their families to really just hold space and be present when people are transitioning from this life into the next, into death. And it can be a really beautiful, sacred, deeply present experience. And so we wanted to share a little bit about that with you, about Christine's experiences. As I was saying before, she's highly connected. I get truth chills whenever I listen to her, whenever we get together. And I've been asking her if I could interview her on this topic for a long time, because I know a lot of my clients are so relieved to be able to just have discussions about life and about death and about grief and all of everything that comes in between. And so, Christine, I would love for you to share with us, what is a death doula and how did you get involved in this work? Because I know you've had some incredible and intense experiences that led you to this place of really wanting to assist people with living fully and dying beautifully.
Well, I'm guessing my first experience began when I was quite young. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 6 years old, and she died when I was 16. So I watched her suffer for many, many years. And as I watched her suffer, I didn't feel like she was living. And so I guess when it came time for her to die, I prayed every night for her to just go, I would pray that she would die. And so when she finally did die, I was relieved. I had a sense of relief. And so in that moment, I didn't feel like I could actually voice that relief. Because I mean, I was 16 and everybody was so distraught and everybody was crying. And I was, so I would make myself cry just because I thought I had to cry. And yet there was a part of me that was just very relieved that she was gone and no longer suffering. And so, yeah, as a younger person, I realized that death is just a freedom. It's a freedom of being away from pain, being away from, I was just relieved her suffering was finally over. And so for me, that was, it was a relief.
Mm-hmm. So that was kind of the opening for you, losing your mother and watching her suffer.
Yes.
And realizing that, that you actually felt relieved and grateful when she finally transitioned.
Yes.
But that's not everyone's experience. So.
Well, and I think from that point on, I decided, I knew at a very young age that there was more to life than what our eyes see. And so when I was young, I realized that the energy that ran through the trees, through the grass, through everything was the same energy running through us. And so I was very connected at a very young age. And so, I was one that if I wanted something in life, I would go for it. And I would make sure that I would do everything I could to get what I wanted. And so, I guess I was a little bit pushy. But I also know, I've always had a knowing that there's something bigger than us. there's something bigger than us. And so, I never understood humanity in the sense of, I was never taught um, prejudice in any way, shape, or form. And so the way I look at our life is we are the human race. And so I honor people. I honor everybody that, and so when it comes to death for me, it's just an exit. It's a simple exit. And for me to be in the presence, it's just an honor to be in the presence of someone who is dying, because I get to escort them out.
Yeah. So tell us more about that, because I know we've been moving through some very intense times. There's been a lot of illness, a lot of dis-ease, a lot of unknown territory that we've been entering, and people are exiting. People are leaving through all different ways, right? Through cancer and heart disease, and my husband just had a massive heart attack on the weekend, and thankfully everything lined up, and he looks like he's going to be okay, and hoping for a full recovery. But even he has such a trust that life is happening for him, that the universe has his back, or that there's angels and guides there, that he actually just looked around in the ambulance and thought, okay, is this my time? And kind of looked to see if there were any angels, angelic beings, any light. And he did see a light. And he was just super surrendered. Well, if this is my time, this is my time. But it's uncomfortable. We don't talk about death. And we actually get upset when people bring it up. Don't say that, as if we're going to just manifest it. But I have news for you. That it is a part of life, right? And people are so afraid of dying that they're actually refusing to live. And that's been my experience in the last few years, is that there's just this fear. And people are so afraid of getting sick, so afraid of dying, that they're refusing to live. And the thing is, that's the gift. That's the gift of death, is to invite you into living more fully, more freely, into presence. And so I love when you said just being in the presence of someone who's transitioning, because it really is that there's this deep invitation into this space of pure presence, just engaging with life like never before when you're with someone who's exiting and who's transitioning. So I would love to hear, when you're with someone, what are they needing? So from the perspective of the family, in your experience, what has the family needed in order to come to a place of peace around losing a loved one? Because it's heartbreaking. And what is the person who's dying most needing in your experience? Because I know you've been there when several people have taken their last breath, and you've assisted to just bring this peace into that space. So tell us more how to do that.
Well, I think first of all, it's the willingness to let go for the person that is dying, and also for the people who are living, to help them to let go. And so, as Jerry and I talked before, maybe a big piece of it is there something that hasn't been forgiven? And so a big piece is forgiving. Another big piece is giving that person permission. Giving that person permission to just go. And so, I in the times I've been with people who have made their transition, I like to call it graduated. I love to hold space, to be in the presence of someone who is transitioning, because there can be a peace in that room like I've never, ever felt before. And so just within that peace is, a lot of times I'll play soft music, and it'll be running water, birds singing, just the sounds of nature. And just to be able to hold their hand, maybe, you know, if they, there's different people I've been with that I know they like their, their hair being touched. And so you get to know the people as you are with them. And so for me, it's just, I get to know them enough that I know what they like, I know what they don't like. Sometimes it's just silence, simple silence, just the peacefulness, and
Just being.
inviting them to let go, just to let go and be free.
Let go and be free. And I really like when you said the importance of forgiveness. Obviously, that resonates with me as a self-love and forgiveness coach, that my whole mission is to help people to die with no regret by living and loving fully. And the only thing that's in the way is our judgments, our ideas, our belief system. And so forgiveness is the soul level healing that we need so that we can live and love fully, which leads us to being able to die with no regret. So yeah, like I think that's so beautiful when you say the importance of forgiveness, and just like, because that's the completion. So that's kind of what's interfering with our ability to just let go, to just surrender, for us to let go of our loved ones who are transitioning, and for our loved ones to let go. And then that second piece, permission, right? Giving them permission to go. I'll be okay. We'll be okay. I remember doing that with my dad and just saying, it's okay. It's okay for you to go, Dad. We'll be okay. And we love you. And I used the oponopono phrases, like, I'm sorry, and filling in the blanks. If there was anything left unsaid, I filled in the blanks. Like, I'm sorry, for that we weren't closer when I was growing up. I'm sorry for my anger, or for, all the apologies and just whatever came up. And then the second phrase, please forgive me. And just noticing what came up, what needed to be forgiven, what felt incomplete. And I asked for his forgiveness, and told him I forgive him. So that was huge. Like, I forgive you. And I could just see, there was a softening, right? So saying, I think, to someone, I forgive you, or you are forgiven, I think that's so huge. Right? And then thank you, right? That gratitude and those memories and all the beautiful moments and the lessons, and even the moments that weren't so beautiful. Like, I'm so grateful for all of it. And then the I love yous, right? Just saying those I love yous. Well, they're still here. So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. And I know you said the importance of also just the music, like the soft. Do you want to share a little bit more, like what kinds of?
Well, again, it's just, the music, the nature sounds and whatnot is what I've used. But also I want to add that just because they're gone, they're not gone. They're never gone. Recently my dad passed, and last year, he died in May last year, graduated. And, if we pay attention, there's signs. There's always signs. And so I guess with my dad, one night I had a dream he was here. And I got up in the morning and the light was on upstairs in the bedroom upstairs. And even my daughter said, Mom, why was the light on? I said, well, I think Grandpa was here last night and he must turn light on. And that is something that they can give us those signs with the light. And then another sign that I see from my dad all the time is his phone number was 648-2452. And how many times I have woke up in the morning and I look at my clock and it's 648. So even last night, my sister and I were watching the hockey game, and the TV wouldn't pause. So I'm like, well, why isn't it pausing? So anyways, I paused it and we went down because Lindsay was here, and we come back up to start the TV again. And I said to Joss, look it's paused at 6:48. Very funny. So, just because the veil is very, very thin between heaven and earth. And so if we watch for the signs, if we want to feel our loved ones, it's so possible to feel them all the time. I have my brother-in-law, when, he loved Coca-Cola. So every time I see a Coca-Cola truck, it's like, hi, Pat. My nephew loved the color orange. So whenever I see an orange vehicle or a vehicle, it's, hi, Richard. They're not gone. They're never gone. They're so close. The veil is very thin. And so when we remember that, and we can find something to notice that they're with us, you'll see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember before my grandmother passed, she was 100 and she was ready. She was ready to go. And she and I discussed, well, are we going to have a sign, or like, how are we going to communicate when you're gone? And she said, oh, you'll know. And I remember, so after she transitioned, I remember just feeling a little bit disappointed that I hadn't had a sign that I knew, right? And that she hadn't communicated with me. And I was like looking, and waiting. And then one day I just kind of went into my meditation. I just closed my eyes and I just released, did my forgiveness work that I do every day, like completing the day. And all of a sudden I felt this love and this peace come washing over me. And it was like, in her laughter, it's like, where have you been? She's like, I've been here all along. Because I was like, where are you? Where are you? She's like, hey, I've always been here. It's about time you got here. So it just required my surrender and to get out of this waiting and this expectation that was the very thing interfering with me actually experiencing her love and kind of having that communication, which is quite different than what we're used to with human communication. But it was just obvious. And I just felt her, and then I felt the laughter and like I'm here. It's us that aren't here because we're trained to not be present. We're trained to live in the past and the future, waiting, expecting. Those are our past and future. And we need to learn how to just be. And death does that for us. Like, it shows us what's important. It teaches us to be in the moment, because that's the space where life resides, in this very moment. And if you fail to arrive in this moment, and you're always in the busyness and the past and the future, then you risk dying with regret, feeling like, wow, I did so many things in my lifetime. If I list them all, there's so much. Too bad I wasn't there for any of them. So we need to start now. It's never too late. It's never too late to have a happy childhood. It's never too late to just start living fully, it's a presence process. That's why mindfulness and meditation are so key. And the gift of death is so sacred and so beautiful. So yeah, and those signs, they're everywhere. If you're present, if you're available, they're everywhere. The smells, the signs, the signals. I know my husband, Kelly, who I'm still best friends with, but we're not together, but he's the father of my 3 daughters. And he had a heart attack on the weekend, a massive heart attack. And he was just looking for the angels and just, okay, so is it my time? And there was a lot of surrender, and actually experiencing when his brother had transitioned, after his brother transitioned, there were so many signs and he knew it was him. Like, it was just so obvious. And like, he was dropping dimes right in front of him. He was holding doors. And And when Kelly had the heart attack on the weekend, I experienced that. I'm like, who's holding the door? And no one was there. And right immediately I knew it was his brother. Like I just knew. He's like, I'm here. No, I'm here. He's not alone. And it's a beautiful process. So, I mean, it can be a beautiful process, and it's an intense, like we're here for the intensity. We're here for that feeling
Absolutely.
experience. And often I just think life, death is birth. Birth is death. What do we die to be born to this world? And then when we die to this world, what are we being birthed into? Right? That there's no separation between birth and death. And between birth and death is breath. And breath can only happen in the present moment, like in the presence, when you're consciously breathing. That's your window into presence.
Yep, the first breath and the last breath.
Yeah.
It's the cycle, the circle of life.
Circle of life. So I know that Paul is on this call too, and he has also worked like you in the hospice. What's that hospice?
Pilgrims.
For Pilgrims Hospice. And so he has a lot of experience with this topic. I see that he has his hand raised. Did you want to?
Sure.
Yeah, bring him
on.
on. So Paul, are you able to join us and unmute yourself?
I am. I'm unmuted.
You are. So let me just, I think I have us locked on the screen here. So let me bring you on with us. Let's see. Add spotlight. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Hello, hello. So, yeah, we'd love to hear a little bit about your
Well,
experience and your.
Well, when I heard that you were going to do this, I thought, wow, I got to be part of that conversation. And I got interested in this dying thing when my mom and dad died about 8-9 years ago. And I was very fortunate enough to be with both of them, holding their hands. They died within a year as they took their last breath. And it was just such a remarkable experience, just as you described, and it stayed with me. So when I retired about 6 years ago, and I have an acquaintance, Rain, I don't know whether you know her, Christine, she's a death doula in Edmonton. And she said, well, why don't you try Pilgrims Hospice? I don't know, what's that? So 6 years later, now I'm training other volunteers, and I've been fortunate enough to sit, I mean, we do vigils with people who are in their last days or hours, and to sit with folks who you watch them, we use the term actively dying. It's just a sacred process, as one of the family members said. It's just, why don't we honor it as much as birth?
Exactly.
I mean, the whole celebration of life thing I like, rather than the big mournful funeral. I mean, yeah, there's the tears and the loss. Yeah.
Sure.
But it's been a remarkable experience for me in the last, because I do 2-3 shifts a week, and I'm training and I'm doing help with the grief groups. But the whole process has given me some kind of a purpose. It's all volunteer. And people say, well, how could you ever do that? I said, why wouldn't I? I mean, it's just life affirming. And I'm sure it's the same in every hospice, but this Pilgrims that I do volunteer work during the pandemic, and we had a meeting with the volunteers the other day, and we all said the same thing. It was a relief to come to the hospice. Because it was, to use a pandemic term, it was a bubble of love and compassion and caring and service and loving kindness outside of the craziness of the world, anti this, da, 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 you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And we all left after our shift renewed. And, even though we were there with people who were dying, so people would scratch their heads and say, well, I don't get that, So I'm very fortunate and thankful that I've been introduced to that, and it's given me, I don't know, more energy and more purpose. And I hear what you're saying, Christine, about I've had this long-term thing about there's got to be something more than what I see. There's this energy going through everything, including yourselves and including the breath. Like, what makes the breath go in? Like, I'm still breathing. wow, another one. How does that work? And my heart is still going. And then there's the last one. And to be there when somebody takes their last breath, and it's not an in breath, it's an out breath.
Mm. It's a
Oh.
sigh of relief.
Yeah. And you said freedom.
Ah,
Yeah. Ah.
beautiful.
And it's the great mystery. We don't know for sure what's out there, you know, beyond what the senses. And I've been with people who, like there's one resident there now, like she's been in this state of transition and people wonder, she's taking a long time to die. It's like in yoga, Hindu terms, maybe it's a pratyahara, where it's like a deep meditation where all the senses just retreat. And she's in this, and every once in a while she'll wake up and she goes back in again. We're just thinking, she must be in this deep state of meditation for days, you know? How is she hanging on? She's not taking any food, water, but that's her process.
That's right.
And other people, they're in and they're gone in a day, you know?
Yeah.
And everybody does it in their own unique way. And it's marvelous. So in the volunteers, we're talking about how it affects their own. Like I'm thinking of, oh, I wonder how I'm going to do it. I wonder how this might, you know. And you're right. The families need support and understanding as well. And they are expressing it individually and family and culturally wise very differently. And we have to accept and acknowledge and respect every way of doing it. You know, there's very fundamental Christian. There's a woman there now who's dying, is very devout Hindu. And we've had indigenous people, all, you know, so it's
Well, and what I feel is a really good opportunity there is to learn about the other cultures and
yes,
to honor and respect what it is, what the process is for them in the dying process.
yes,
Right? So to be able to learn about other cultures and their way of being, their way of doing it, you know, it fascinates me.
yeah, it fascinates all of us. And what I like is the doctors and the nursing staff, they're also caring and loving. I mean, it's just, wow, you know,
Mm.
bedside manner is part of their training, you know.
Mhm.
Like I was talking to, like we feed some of the residents, you know, because they can't feed themselves. And feeding, and I'm talking to this woman last week, and we're just finishing up, and the doctor comes in and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry," like as if he was, we were, he was in our way, you know. And I said, "No, you're the doctor, for God's sake." So
But that's where I honor him for
yes,
apologizing because you know, like when you walk into someone's room and they're having a meal, I don't care who you are. You know, there's that doctor. I will honor that doctor for saying, "Oh, I'm sorry," you know, and maybe I can come back later or something. You know, good for him
yeah,
for having the respect enough to do that. Because in my experience, there's not every doctor would do that.
yeah. He's also a diehard Oiler fan, so.
Oh. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I wanted to be part of the conversation and share that because it's become so important to me. So
Mm,
thank you.
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you for being there and just offering that beauty, you know, that this process is just part of the process of life. And that we need to not have so much fear of this
No,
unknown territory. Like,
no fear.
no, it's just a transition, it's a state change, they're still there. And honoring the beliefs of everyone and just what
Well,
a
and to be in the
privilege.
presence of someone dying is, for me, it's an honor. It's an
Oh,
honor.
yeah.
You know, it's just an honor to be a part of that process and to, as I said before, escort them out and to be
Mhm.
there for the family, to be able to help the family,
Mm.
whether it's with their grieving process or their, you know, or just sitting in silence sometimes is all it takes, is just to be in silence and holding space for the room.
One of the things in the training that we say to the initial trainees who are coming in, and we say to them, well, one of the things you're going to have to learn is to shut up and listen.
Mm,
I mean, it's just basic, just listen without judgment. Is sort of a mindfulness practice. Just be there non-judgmentally, listen and acknowledge and witness and validate, and
Yes.
most people just want an opportunity to share in a safe, non-judgmental place,
absolutely.
Yeah, to share their lives and help them to complete so that they can just let go. I know my grandmother, I interviewed her when I knew she was close to her transition time. So there's Brendan Bouchard has a interview a loved one. He has questions, like a couple pages of questions for interviewing a loved one. And she loved it. She looked so forward to our time together because I recorded it so that the family could have a copy, audio recorded. And I also wrote down her answers. And I think she was just so grateful to just revisit her life and share the gifts and what would she pass on, and what does the world need now, and what does she wish for her grandkids, and what would she have changed if she could, like all of those opportunities to just share and have that safety to be vulnerable. Like I feel like it really did assist her.
Mm,
So I
thank
highly
you.
recommend that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's online if you look up Brendan Bouchard, interview a loved one. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Paul. Awesome. We'll
Welcome.
remove that spotlight. And yeah, and so the other thing that's really hit me as I've attended some seminars on death and dying, and with death doulas and talking to you, is just like what happens after they take their last breath too. And that was like a total shift for me when I heard some people explain how, they weren't in a rush to, okay, oh, they died, we have to quickly move the body, we have to, but they actually just like staying in that space, in that window of space where they're still there, they can still hear you, and staying with the body and not being in this big hurry, but actually just slow everything down. Like, and so I'm wondering if you have any experience with that.
Yeah, I would not recommend, rushing out of the room. It's definitely important to just spend time with the body, with your loved one, and whether you continue to hold their hand and just feel the peace in the room. There's a peace in the room after someone departs that is just, it's a beautiful presence. It's beautiful to be a part of that peacefulness, and to know that you've actually just helped someone exit the world, graduate. So to sit, even if it's in silence, just to sit there and feel the joy, the peace,
Right.
just, yeah, you can feel it if you
Or
allow
the
yourself.
grief.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Or just allowing yourself to just like, just be by their bedside and just feel everything. And like, I never even thought of that until I started reading, how some people do it. And I thought that's so beautiful to just stay and to gather around and to put flowers on the body and wash the feet and wash, And I thought, wow, like normally we want to just quickly cover that up, right? They cover but to bathe them and to just honor that vessel. Like,
well, and as a nurse, is like at one time in my life, I was nurse's aide. And so when we had a resident die, it was an honor to wash the body down and to be able to comb their hair. And, before the family came in, if the family hadn't been there yet, just to be able to give them that sense of, it just helps to help them look peaceful, to be able to be in a peaceful place. And I know even when my dad passed, The nurses, my sister and I were with him. And so then when we left, the nurses, prepared his body for the funeral home to come. And so we left for a little, half an hour. And we came back, and, when we walked back in the room, it was just like, wow, he just looked so at peace. And when the funeral home come, they said, take your time, we're in no rush. And so, I don't even know how to explain the honor it is to be in the presence of someone who is actively dying.
Mhm.
It's just an honor.
Yeah. Like everything just slows down and opens up and softens. Like, how healing is that?
And I think, Christine, you mentioned about, if I remember correctly here, about awareness of ourselves and our own body in the process of being with somebody, and how we are with life, how we are with death, how we are with the whole transition, and where we're keeping that tension in our body, and how we are with this person dying versus that person dying in the process. And it's just, in our conversations with the other volunteers, we're all more aware of ourselves in life, in our bodies, because of the work we're doing with people who are dying, because we're forced into that place of stillness and peace, and become more aware of, all this static that's in the middle of it.
Absolutely. And so many people live, whether they're living in the past or in the future, for what it's taught me is to remember to be in the moment.
Yeah.
And when I find myself not in the moment, I do my best to bring myself back to the moment. Because we're human, right? So we always, our mind is going to wander. And so we might be, thinking of what happened last week. We might be worrying about what's happening next week. And so what working with death has helped me do is to bring myself back into the moment, to be present in the moment at all times. Now, have I got that mastered? No, I'd be lying if I said I did.
Not me.
But when I realize I'm not in the moment, I bring myself back to the moment, because that's all there is. The moment is all we've got. And so I really do the best I can to pay attention to being in the moment.
Powerful.
And death has taught me to be in the moment.
That's a good line. Thank you. Yeah, so powerful. So, yeah, so a few comments in the chat, and we have a few people on Facebook too, just saying what a privilege it is to be with people that are actively dying, and that we're all going to be there, and what are our wishes, and actually having conversations. Like, I know it's uncomfortable when I talk to my daughters. They used to be very uncomfortable with it. Now they're kind of getting used to it. And my conversations about life and about death, and how it's the same, right? And it's okay to be uncomfortable. And it's important to have these conversations, and to make your wishes known, and to complete the incompletes, and to say what's left unsaid. And that is another gift. Like when my dad was dying and he had a terminal illness, I remember feeling very distraught that he had to suffer the way he did. And I thought, why could he just have had a sudden heart attack or something? But then as soon as I had that thought, I thought, oh, no, like we were a family that didn't really touch or hug or love. Like we didn't say, I love you. And there was a lot of incompletes. There was a lot of things left unsaid. And so that last year of his life, I visited him every day, and we had the conversations that we didn't have the courage to have before. We had the uncomfortable conversations. I told him for the very first time, I think it was 2 months before he died, I told him, I love you, Dad. And man, let me tell you, I was planning that for a long time, and I finally got it out. And I thought, okay, I have no attachment. He doesn't have to say it back, nothing. And I just remember that moment so clearly. The very first time I told him I loved him, and he was having difficulty speaking, but he told me he loved me back. And I always remember that. And that's when my family first started saying, like, not my family with my kids. I always said it to my kids, but my mother, my father, my sisters, we started to finally say we loved each other
Mm.
and hug, not just like a little pat, you know. So yeah, and it was because when my father died, I mean, that was a beautiful gift that he left, is we got that this is important, because we just kind of glossed over it. Oh, we know we love each other. We don't need to say it. It's not true.
Well,
We
and
need to hear
as
it.
you're saying that, Jerry, actually, that brought back the memory of, I think, on my mom's deathbed as well, is when we started saying, I love you.
Mm,
And so, you know, I mean, we can judge all we want how long it's taking, but there's some unfinished business if it's taking longer than it's supposed to. And so that's part of it as well.
like
Trust
trusting
the
what
process.
is, that what is what needs to be, and not judging whatever that looks like.
Mm.
You know, we think we have our ideas and it shouldn't be like this. Well, the fact is it should, because it is. It
That's
is
right.
like this, and us fighting against what is and fighting against reality, and you know, and pushing against death, and acting like it's this big, it's a bad thing, and judging that even, right? Like, you know, it just is. It's
Mhm.
the journey, and it's an invitation to be more present in your life, like you said. Like, what a beautiful gift that we have, that we know that we do have an expiry date. So say the things now, do the things now, be here now.
Mm. Absolutely.
So I feel like that's kind of a good place to wrap this up.
Mm.
But are you still helping people? Like, how can they get a hold of you? And where could they maybe find out more information? Because I know there's some fantastic books and mentors.
Well, I know a book I would highly recommend is Anita Morjani, Dying to Be Me. She
Mhm.
actually died and came back. And it's a beautiful, beautiful account of, and I mean, she still is on Facebook and still has active social media and stuff. I myself left social media because it was toxic for my soul. So I couldn't do it anymore. But she's definitely one I would recommend. You know, I have, my website is Soul Salvation. And so if you want to look that up, it will give you a little more insight into who I am and the experiences that I share about myself. And so, yeah, if there's ever any questions or anything you want to know, or not that I have the answers, I don't have everybody's answers, but I can do the best I can to allow spirit to operate me.
Mm. Yeah, so soulsalvation.ca. And
One word?
yes, please.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I thought you wanted a word. Sorry. That,
Nope.
well, one word. Yes, the website.
I should have had a business card here.
Yeah, soulsalvation.ca. And yeah, and you know, if you just need to talk and you're moving through some challenging times, maybe having been diagnosed or having someone you love being diagnosed with a terminal illness or anything like that, and you just need an ear, Christine is amazing to just hold space. Paul is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a lot of beautiful souls here that know how to do that. They know how to listen, that know how to be present.
Well, and even, you know, I would love to meet you, Paul, and, you know, and maybe we can one day get together and have a coffee and
Yeah, that'd be good.
yeah.
Mhm.
You're in Edmonton?
Well, in Beaumont.
No, Beaumont. Oh, okay. I'm in the south side of Edmonton, so I'm not far.
Yeah, so it's not very far.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, and I know that you've studied with Don Miguel Ruiz and Wayne Dyer, and you've had so many beautiful spiritual experiences through through those platforms and all of the spiritual work you've done,
Mm.
personal growth you've done. I know you're on a huge personal growth journey, and that you really do practice what you preach, and have. And this woman has a lot of passion. She also has this dragon in her. She's like this truth speaker, and when things are, unjust,
There's a
it's like,
picture of my dragon.
yeah. Oh yeah,
See.
you're wearing your dragon. There
I'm
you
wearing
go.
my dragon.
Yes. Yeah. So it's, yeah, even her home, it's just like, oh, I mean, it's just beautiful. Everything. There's angels everywhere. There's feathers, there's crystals, there's these beautiful nature scenes.
And she's there too.
And there's this beautiful baby that I love so much. Yes. So I want to thank you for your time, and just for you and Paul, like, for holding space. And I know my friend Jennifer White too, she's held space for people moving through the transition between life and death, and talks about what a privilege it is and what an honor it is. And that we need to just open up these conversations, because there's this big scary thing around the unknown, and it's not so unknown if we actually start to talk about it and
That's
share
right.
our experiences. Like, it's part of life. Everyone has experiences, so we need to just talk a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for participating, for listening, for your beautiful comments in the chat. And and just I invite you into greater presence, and using death as that window into living more fully, into loving more fully. Because if there's anything that I could leave you with, is dying with no regret is getting busy loving fully. Living fully is loving fully. And they've done studies with people on their deathbed about their biggest regret. And it's always the same. I wish I would have loved more. Wish I would have been loved more.
And I think remembering to live every day like it's your last. I think that's, for me, some days I wake up and might not be having a great day. And then I'm like, what if today was my last day? And it's like, okay, let's go. So for me, it's doing my best to remember to live every day as though it's my last, because we don't know.
As though it's your last and the first, the excitement of the first.
Yeah.
I do first day, last
Absolutely.
day philosophy, like the first time that I see this, every time I see my kids, it's like, what if it was the first time?
Absolutely.
And to see everything and everyone for the first time, and also to have, not to wait, right? So that little bit of an urgency that it could be the last time. So just love.
Yeah.
And say thank you. Every time I get up, I use Wayne Dyer's. He said he put one foot on the floor and say thank, the next foot on the floor and say you. Every time he got out of bed, every morning, thank you. And I do that every day. Thank you for this beautiful day.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all. Blessings to everybody.
Namaste.
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 Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.